This is a game of chicken. Who's going to blink first? We have Iran that is hemorrhaging money because they're not able to sell their oil. We started the year in the fives. Now interest rates are hovering at 6 3/4, heading towards 7%. People really back off because now it becomes too expensive to buy a home. Google made an announcement with EXP that put your listings on Google, bypassing the MLS. What is the relevance of this MLS? Whatever anybody says, what is best for individuals, for buyers, sellers? Welcome to the Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez, where we talk everything real estate. For this show, I'm going to talk about interest rates, the Middle East, what is going on. The rates just keep on going up. Also, the MLS. What is the future of the MLS? There's a bunch of news. We all know there's a bunch of consolidation going on in the real estate industry. So let's first jump into interest rates. Well, this is a game of chicken. Who's going to blink first? So we have Iran that is hemorrhaging money because they're not able to sell their oil. They have to contend with their people being disgruntled. How long can they last under these conditions? Because there is that blockade where they can't ship oil out. And then on the other side, can they outlast the President Trump? Because as interest rates go up, as fuel costs go up, he's getting some major pushback with the Republicans and just the people here in the United States in general, with the cost of inflation, with gasoline prices being higher means everything's higher. And mortgage rates going up, what's going on with the bonds, all that. So this is a game of chicken. Who's going to blink first and who can? Remember, come November, there's the midterm elections, and you're going to have Republicans, wanting to make sure that they're able to get reelected. So there's going to be a whole heck of a lot of pressure. And if the Republicans lose the House and potentially lose the Senate, well, guess what? Now you're going to have the Democrats in charge of the House and the Senate, and they're going to start impeachment. Trump's not going to be able to get much accomplished because you're going to have divided. You have that the White House versus the Congress, and he's going to get nothing passed. So he's got to look at that. The cutoff date there is going to be sometime in June, July, where he's going to really have to, come to some kind of resolution on it. And then on the same token, hey, how long can Iran last? How long, are there people going to revolt? How long can they sustain the conditions that they're in? Because right now, interest rates have been, slowly but surely going up. We started the year in the fives. We're talking about 5 3/4, 5.875. Depending on loan programs, you were down a little bit lower than that. Now interest rates are hovering at 6 3/4, 5.5, 6 3/4, and heading towards 7%. And we know in the mortgage world and the real estate world, once interest rates start hitting that 7%, it just stalls. People really back off because now it becomes too expensive to buy a home. The monthly payments. I mean, we're talking about $200, $300, $400 a month difference from having a 5.75 versus having a 6.75 or a 7% interest rate. So this is going to be a game of chicken. Who's going to blink first? What's going to happen? And it's all about Iran and the Middle East. That's it. Nothing else. We're not talking about before. It was jobs over inflation. Right now, it's Middle East inflation. Middle East inflation, because Middle East is causing this inflation to trickle in. Into the markets. So it's going to be very interesting to see what ends up happening. Who's going to blink first? Only time will tell. Are you thinking about buying, refinancing, or investing in real estate? I've been a loan officer for 30 years, helping my clients find the right loan for the right property. I keep it simple and honest. If you want real numbers and guidance you can trust, give me a call. Now let's get back to the show. Let's jump into the MLS. MLS is a multiple listing service. Okay, there's a bunch of consolidation. I mean, there's consolidation, period, in the real estate world. We're talking about Compass buying Anywhere. We had, Rocket, buying Redfin. We had Compass making a deal with Rocket and Redfin. We had Real buying Remax and so on. EXP bought, all these players are in here. What's, KW going to do? What's Berkshire Hathaway going to do? Are they going to consolidate? Are they one going to buy somebody else? Is EXP going to continue, buying? So only time will tell. But on the MLS side of things, which is super interesting, and we're going to see how all this transpires, is what's going to happen? What relevance is the MLS going to have moving forward? Because right now, you have Zillow with their previews. You, as a brokerage, can turn around and upload your property into Zillow. So you're bypassing the MLS. Before, you used to put in the MLS, and they used to syndicate everything else. But right now, you're bypassing that. We had Cotality. They're saying, hey, you can upload your listings to Cotality, and they'll syndicate it. So once again, bypassing the MLS. And now Google made an announcement with EXP that, hey, now you could put your listings on Google, once again, bypassing the MLS. So what is the relevance of this MLS? What's going to happen? But guess what? They're fighting back and forth because now we have the MLS made a deal with a Compass, and that's MRED. This is the Chicago predominant MLS that stopped their syndication to Zillow, which now Zillow is suing MRED. And they're putting up the private listings and for Compass, and they're syndicating Compass's deals through them, but not giving it to Zillow. Bright, signed a deal with Compass as well. So, how all this is going to shake out, ultimately, what's going to happen. But the biggest thing is, what is best for consumers, period. Okay. Now, everybody's going to say transparency, this, that, the other. They're all looking for their own business models. What serves them as a business? So whatever Compass says, whatever the MLS says, whatever anybody says, they're looking at their vantage point. But reality, what is best for individuals, for buyers, sellers? Okay, and it is truly transparency. Hey, there should be a mechanism where you can see all listings. Okay. Not have these, private listings, except for the exception of, if somebody's a celebrity and really it doesn't want their listing, out there for everybody. We're talking about, less than 1%. We're talking about true transparency that everybody can see everything. That's ultimately the best for the industry. But who knows what ultimately is going to happen? And reality, the MLS was established, okay, simply to be a means to distribute your listings, not to be a marketing tool, not to create rules. It was formed where one brokerage could turn around and share their listings with another brokerage, and so on and so forth. So if you want to take a libertarian mindset with this, hey, MLS, stay in your lane. Just publish our listings. It's my listing, it's mine. It's not yours. It's not NAR's. It's not Zillow's. It's my listing, my brokerage, to have that ultimate, control over it. And this is just a way of me to syndicate it, to let other brokerages know that I have a house for sale. So it's going to be super interesting. I believe there's going to be more consolidations. How does that impact the agents as well? Hey, if you have one place where you can see everything, I think that's best for agents. I think it's best for buyers and sellers. but that may not be. It may be you may have to go to multiple sites to be able to see all the listings. And with this consolidation, if you're a big, massive brokerage, and it depends on certain cities where different companies have different market share, like you could be out in California, where Compass has, or San Francisco, let's take it a little bit smaller, where Compass has a huge market share, maybe 60%. Well, if they take down their listings, well, how are you going to find it if you're with another agency? And it may force you to say, heck, if I want to be an agent in this market, do I have to join Compass? Those kind of things. So what are these impacts going to have throughout? And ultimately, it's all going to come down to, is it a buyer's market or is it a seller's market? If it is a buyer's market, guess what? There's no seller in a million years going to say, hey, do a private listing. They're going to say, we need to expose this to everybody and their grandmother. I need people to come in. And a perfect example is if you're in, the Gulf part of Florida, South Florida, if you're in Texas, like Austin, Texas, where they have a ton of inventory and it's just sitting there, nobody's talking about private listings there. They're begging people to come and take a look at their property. So they're not, they're playing any games. Where these private listings will come into play, and where the MLS, the lack of being able to see information for other agents are really going to come to play, is where there is low inventory and higher demand. So we're going to see how everything transpires. Interest rates, they're going up. Is that going to stall the market? We're looking at interest rates now, like I said, in the high sixes. Last year, we were between 6 3/4 and 7 1/4 this time. So, heck, we're inching back to where we were a year ago. Everybody thought this year we were going to, have a stronger market because interest rates were starting off in the low sixes to high fives. So we're going to see how everything plays out. Hopefully, the resolution in the Middle East will happen. Interest rates will come back down. It'll take a little bit of time for that to happen, and we could have a strong second half of the year. Well, only time will tell. Hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, and of course, The Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez on YouTube. The Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez on YouTube. That's where this be airing. Remember, leave some comments, subscribe. I'm almost at 50,000 subscribers. Really helps me out. Hit some likes, helps the algorithm, and gets it out there to more people. Well, hope you enjoyed the show once again, and I'll see you next week. Bye.